A federal judge expected to rule tomorrow whether the White House must restore the hard pass of CNN's Jim Acosta. That hearing had been scheduled for this afternoon. The postponement comes after attorneys for the administration claim the president has the authority to bar any reporter from the White House and that there has been no violation of First Amendment rights, period. Joining us tonight to talk about the latest antics of the disappointed mob and the sore losers of the Democratic Party, former Deputy Trump Campaign Manager David Bossie, co-author of the forthcoming book, Trump's Enemies, How the Deep State is Undermining the Presidency, available for pre-order now. We recommend you do so. They're going to run out of this first printing quickly. David, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
This is amazing to me, this lawsuit. This lawsuit is over a reporter who, frankly, in my opinion, would be an embarrassment to any news organization covering the President of the United States.
He is an embarrassment, and that's one of the reasons that the president decided to take the swift action that he did. Jim Acosta made that press conference a travesty, and he made it about himself. It was his ego-driven speech to the president, not a question, but a speech.
Yeah, it was an attempt to become a peer of the President of the United States as a lowly journalist. I mean, the aggrandizement of the role is extraordinary on the part of Mr. Acosta. The fact of the matter, to presume that you should be there debating the president in the White House is
it's outrageous,
unbelievable. By the way, the president, I don't think in any way acted on this in a timely fashion, and certainly not in a hurried fashion. He's put up with this nonsense since he was standing there before them in the White House press room.
For almost 2 years.
It's just amazing how he has been patient with those people. He puts up with more nonsense. And honestly, I think it's an affront to the president on the part of the White House press corps.
It is. And Lou, let's just get to the facts of this for a second. And that is that there is no breach of the First Amendment of CNN. CNN has 50,
everybody knows that,
50,
David. By the way, that's just lawyer stuff. That's not the facts of the thing.
Of course.
Just, it's cheaper than buying ads. They pay for a few two-bit lawyers to run a suit against the president, the White House.
It's exactly right. But the CNN has 50 hard passes, 50, more than anybody else. So they have the ability to have people there covering this president and asking questions.
They want more people in the White House than the president has. That's when they will be happy.
That's exactly right. So, look, this is going to end in court, and we're going to see exactly what a federal judge believes. But I think that this White House has put forth an argument that says that they have not breached this First Amendment of Jim Acosta or CNN.
Yeah, I just don't think anyone should take it very seriously. I mean, this is if ever there were a frivolous lawsuit, this is it. And all of the folks who are joining into this thing, I mean, they know what it is. This is a publicity stunt on the part of CNN, and they're getting all of this airtime, most especially as you and I talk about it tonight.
That's right. They're desperate for ratings, and that's what they do, a show like this.
You know, this president, there are no shows like this, David. We've had this talk before. You've got to stop that. You've got to stop that. I'm gonna wait to see what your response is to that. I'm going to wait you out, David.
What about this show? The show that CNN is putting on in court is what I'm talking about, and that's what I'm talking about. The show that they're putting on in court.
I was mortally offended there. My gosh. Let's turn to the press's attempts, the national left-wing media, the Democratic Party's efforts. Let's be really honest. The Republican establishment's efforts, as well as that of the radical Dems. They have been trying to delegitimize this president since day one of his election. And it has reached absurd levels. It did so quickly. But now it drags on and on. There are no new words for them to employ, no new tactics. These people have become onerous. They have become burdensome to anything amounting to civil dialogue. This president shouldn't have to put up with this nonsense. And yet he is tolerant of the special counsel that's been investigating for over 2 years, the FBI and the special counsel, this president, and the charge of collusion. It's absurd. Well, we're watching, millions of illegal immigrants cross our borders and many of them voting in the past election. That's what it was just a couple of weeks ago, and having an immense impact. If there are, as Yale and MIT say, 20 to 30 million illegal immigrants already in this country, you know what that means for the districts of the U.S. Congress and the influence that they're giving to, for example, the state of California, Illinois, New York. But New York has such an
the burden on our
migration,
economy.
it's not going to have much effect. I'm sorry?
And the burden on our economy that they bring along with them.
Yes, but the president himself acknowledging in the last week that, yes, this country needs labor, and it does. But why the Koch brothers won't go along with a legal immigration system? They want to have a Koch brothers immigration system. Wall Street wants
They want the cheap labor. That's right. They want cheap labor at all costs, open borders, and so that they can make
why don't
even
the
more.
Republicans, why doesn't this administration stop it now? It's in their power. He's got troops on the border. He has called upon his secretaries of the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense. My God, what does it take? Are we just sitting here helpless against anyone who wants to cross that border and to have their way with the American way?
It certainly seems that way, especially with the Democrat takeover of the House. You're not going to have any legislative...
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, David? With Paul Ryan and those rhinos that made up his leadership team, one of whom is now the speaker designate, they did more to crush this president's plans for a wall. They refused to appropriate it. This isn't a Democrat-Republican thing. That's a fiction. This is a president who has been betrayed by his party, and he is being, right now, betrayed by some in his own administration.
You're exactly right. And all I was going to add on is when the new Speaker of the House wants to destroy ICE, destroy the men and women of ICE and destroy that organization, create open borders and an immigration policy coming out of that House that's even worse than what we have now. It is hard to imagine what this president is going to be able to fight
and how do you
because
feel about
of what this left.
The new minority leader. Big difference?
You know, we will see exactly what... Look, I believe that Kevin McCarthy will look that we are all the Freedom Caucus now. I think that's the approach he has to take in being in the minority and as minority leader. He has to join and band together with the conservative caucus.
After, after the broadcast, you and I can make a small bet, a wager, and we can leave it there. David Bossie, it's great to have you with us, and the president's enemies. I think that's a timely subject, and we wish you well with the book, and come back soon, and we'll continue to hawk it right here.